students, so let's discuss our new topic, that is the warfare for wealth. What is the main reasons to do wars? What is the main reasons to wars? The main reason was, as our topic suggests, that the war for wealth. Okay. There were the lot of dynasties that were emerged in that period of time and wanted to get control over these kingdom, over these dynasties. Okay, the three dynasties that emerged in that time was the Gujjar Pratihara, Malwa Rajasthan, Rashtrakutas from Malwa, from most of the places of Karnataka or Gujarat, and the Pallavas from the Bengal. Okay, they had a great conflict between each other, and they also fought for the particular kingdom. Okay, and the conflict that they had between them, it is also called the tripartite struggle. Okay, so what is the reason of fighting with each other? The reason was Kannauj. As the Kannauj, it is situated in near the river Ganga, and why they want to gain control over Kannauj? This is also a question, that why they want to get control over Kannauj. So the main reason was Kannauj was the most prosperous kingdom in that point of time, and they had a good connectivity with the international trade, and they also had a good and a great political development. Okay, so if we are saying that these countries are fighting, these countries had a conflict for establishing their supremacy over Kannauj, and as after the conflict, after a long conflict, okay, eventually their dynasties were declined because they got tired. All right, so why they were used to fire, now we will discuss this. Why they were used to do wars? They used to do wars to acquire more wealth and to become more prosperous, to demonstrate powers. They used to demonstrate their powers and sources by building the big temples. All right, they used to build the idol of God with gold, as these kings, they were Hindu, so they used to build the idols of God with the gold. And these kingdoms, these temples and these idols, they were become the center of attraction for most of the invaders to come to the India and to plunder. Okay, so one such example of that invader is the Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni. The Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni is also called the Muhammad of Ghaznavi. The Ghazni is a place. He was the ruler of the Ghazni, and the Ghazni at present, it is in Afghanistan. Okay, the Muhammad of Ghaznavi, he ruled in India from 997 to 1030 CE. Alright, so he targeted the most of the Hindu temples because these temples were made of gold and idols were also made of golds, and he plundered the Somnath temple, and in 1025 CE, and he carried out all the gold, all the things to his place in Ghazni. Okay, he raided India 70 times from 1001 to 1027 CE. The main reason was of that Muhammad of Ghaznavi was not to rule over India but to plunder the gold and the prosperity and the learned people and the scholar to carry it out to his place Ghazni, and he After taking all the things in his place Ghazni, he made the very beautiful and gorgeous to his Ghazni. Okay, and many scholars were resident at his court as he carried out the learned men from India and other places also. So in his court there was a lot of scholars resident. So one of the main scholar was the Al-Biruni. All right, his work was to keep record of that where he was attacking and what was the lifestyle of the people of that place. And he also wrote a Arabic word, that is the Kutabul Hind. It is a great source for the historians to write about that period. Okay, the situation of that period and the circumstances of that period. Now we will talk about the next invader, that is the Muhammad Ghori. So after the death of Ghaznavi in 1030 Common Era, the Muhammad Ghori, he ascended the throne of Ghazni in 1173 Common Era. So Muhammad Ghori, he has fought many battles with Indian rulers, and among them there was also a ruler, the Indian ruler, that was Prithvi Raj Chauhan. He was the one ruler who has ever defeated Muhammad Ghori. Alright, and there was two battles between them, that Tarain first battle and Tarain second battle. Okay, in 1191 there was a first battle of Tarain first. In that battle, the Prithvi Raj Chauhan, he had defeated the Muhammad Ghori, but in the very next year, in 1192 Common Era, in the Tarain second battle, the Muhammad Ghori defeated the Prithvi Raj Chauhan, and after defeating Prithvi Raj Chauhan and after gaining so many territories of India, he returned to his hometown Ghazni and he handed over all the Indian territories to its slave, that is the Kutubuddin Aibak. The other kings who engaged in warfare was the Chahmanas, later also known as the Chauhans, as we have discussed that one of the main ruler of Chauhans, that is Prithviraj III, who defeated the Muhammad Ghori in the battle of Tarain first, and he had his rule over the Delhi and Ajmer, but he attempted to extend his rule over the most part of the east or west, but these Chalukyas and Gahadavas, they opposed this ruler to for the acquiring the most of the places. So in the warfare for wealth, we learned that how the kingdom, how the ruler, they attempted to acquire more and more wealth to establish their vast empire. After discussing the warfare for wealth, now we will discuss a closer look the Cholas. As these Cholas, they had their kingdom over the North India from 800 to 1200 Common Era. Now we will discuss this, that how did Cholas rise to power. The Cholas, as they were from minor chiefly family and had no support of any of the royalty, and they are not related to any of the kingdom, and had a small region, Mutriyar. It is situated near the Kaveri Delta. As they were the subordinate and they had a very small region, so they are controlled by the Pallavas king. The Pallava, they are from the Kanchipuram. Okay, they controlled the most part of this Cholas. Then in the mid of 19th century, Vijayalaya, a king, came to existence and established his kingdom and acquired the Mutriyar and became a king. And he was also known as the founder of this dynasty. Okay. Then he made a beautiful temple. The name of the temple was Nishumbha Sudhini. And this temple is also known as the beautiful fine architecture of that time. Then the Cholas, afterward, they conquered the most part of north and south and Pallavas and Pandyan dynasty. It means that now the Cholas have become that capable to acquire the north or south part of the India and to defeat the Pallavas and Pandyan dynasties. Okay, now we will talk about the Rajaraja first, who was the most powerful king of this Cholas dynasties. Rajaraja first, as he was known as the most powerful king of the Cholas, he ruled from 985 to 114 Common Era in most part of the northern India, and he was also known as the Rajaraja Chola first. He defeated the Chers and the Pandyas, and he conquered the most part of the Sri Lanka and annexed the northern part of the Sri Lanka as well, and also reorganized the administration of the empire in his period. Then his son, he came into the throne, and his son name was Rajendra first. He continued his expansion of the region policies, the policies he used to expand his kingdom, and he raided the Ganga valley. And he also conquered not in the India only, but outside of the India, the most part of the Sri Lanka and most part of the southern East Asia. Alright, and then the developing the naval expedition, and he also used the policy of the expedition of the naval, as it is very much required to annex, to acquire, to expand their kingdom. It is very much required to have a strong naval expedition. Then how they did this? They started from the small region, and they conquered the most part of the northern and the most part of the outside of the India as well, like Sri Lanka and the Southeast Asia. How they did this? What was the administration they used, they followed? Now we will discuss this. They made the splendid temples and bronze sculpture. In it, that the Chola dynasty, they built a very beautiful and big temples, which was the center of cultural life, as the Tanjavur temple built by the Rajaraja first, and the Gangaikonda Cholapuram was a temple made by. So the Cholas temples often became the nuclei of the settlements which grew around them. Means the Cholas, they built the temple as a nuclear point where all the people that associate together and live together, and they used to live near the temple like priests for the rituals, garland makers, cooks, sweepers, musicians and dancers, etc. So we can say that these temples, the Cholas temple, they were also known as the miniature of a cities, where there is a hub of economic, social and cultural life. As you can see that how they make the economic, social and cultural life. So In spite of worshipping in the temple, the Cholas temple that has the uniqueness, we can say that and in a Cholas period there was the bronze images are considered among us the most finest work in the world, as these bronze images, it is the images of deities, but sometimes it is the images of devotees. Now we will discuss the agriculture and the irrigation pattern of the Cholas dynasty. Now we will discuss the agriculture and irrigation process of Cholas. The achievements of the Cholas were made possible because of the new development in the agriculture. Alright. The first point is Kaveri River. The Kaveri rivers were very famous in that point of time because of its flow. As its flow and later it divides it into a different channel, and before joining to the Bay of Bengal, it deposits the most of the fertile soil in bank of the in its bank of the river, and this fertile soil is very much required for the agriculture. Okay, and then the Cholas, they decided to be clear the most of the forest, because before them there were the rulers, they used very minimal place for the agriculture, and as for the agriculture we are required the most of the places for the development, and then they use the dam. They were required to make dam to prevent their land from the flood. And one more thing is required: if there is no rain and there is no water, the rivers they get finished, then they required the artificial method of irrigation. Then they use that tank, and in the tank they deposit the rainwater. And one more, the walls, they used to duct the walls to get the water and for the irrigation purposes. So it is very much required for any of the ruler and any of the dynasty of any of the government to have a better settlement or better administration. They should have the sources, the labor and all things to make possible development of the agriculture and the irrigation processes.
The capital of the Cholas were Tanjore. The Chola Empire was divided into three major administrative units called central government, provincial government and local government. Uttaramir's descriptions throws light on the administration of the Cholas. The tiger was the royal emblem of Chola king. The king was assisted in his work by council of ministers. The lower officials were called Siruntaram, while higher officials were called Piruntaram. The whole empire had been divided into 9 provinces called mandalams. Each province was headed by a viceroy who received orders from the king. Each mandalam was divided into number of kotams or valanadus, which was further subdivided into nadu. Each nadu was further divided into villages called urs. That's all for this video. See you in the next video. Till then, stay smart, stay safe, stay open.